Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Makers Bar podcast, creating and raising 1 million leaders. Today we have with us Jawad Shaikh. Hi, Jawad. How are you doing?
Hey, Suhavi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for joining us. Um, thanks for joining us. Yeah, on middle of the week, middle of a busy week. Yeah,
No, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
yeah. So, Jawad, let's continue our conversation that we were just having offline. Um, so, tell me a little bit about yourself and what are you doing right now?
Sure. Yeah, so I said that I'm Jawad Shaikh, President and CEO of American University School of Medicine, Aruba. So we're in the process of a starting and launching, or actually pre-launching already a full medical school university here in Aruba. It's basically 2 years in Aruba is where most of our students are, and then 2 years in the United States where the clinical rotations are as well too. So really kind of in the process of kind of launching that.
Okay. So this is to make sure that people who like applicants from Aruba have access to the same kind of education that they would have in the United States. Is that
Yeah,
something
not
that you're looking at?
not just Rubens. So we do have most of Rubens, but most of our students come from the United States. So we really
Okay.
kind of target or go after students that are looking for an additional path or additional option that might have challenges getting into United States medical school, right? Whether if they don't score well on their medical college admissions exams or they're financially have issues. So we basically are providing a kind of a lower cost option and an affordable way to kind of go through and have medical education to be a doctor.
Okay, that's nice. And why did you choose Aruba?
So we chose Aruba because of it's really we wanted an international spot that's close to the United States, and it's basically gives easy access and is very familiar to the being a small U.S. town, right? They have all your cash works, U.S. dollar works, the electronic plugs, everything is the same. They have your Pizza Hut, your Domino's, so it makes it very familiar. But also the government in Aruba has been very friendly and work and good to work with as well too. So we have a good relationship with them and with the community as well too. So it's kind of a great environment to learn and without distractions and relax, and that's kind of what you need as well too.
Yeah, and it's also beautiful, right? I think that helps.
Yep, it's like studying in paradise, as they say.
Yeah. I remember watching Friends,
Mhm.
and Jennifer Aniston's character was supposed to go to Aruba for her honeymoon. And then I remember I was very young when I watched it, and I remember Googling Aruba, and
Yeah,
I was like, wow, I want to go there. So, yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah.
amazing
Beautiful place.
spots. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful place.
Yeah. So, so how did you get about to doing this kind of work?
Sure. So I've been in the healthcare business my entire life, right? So my very first job out of school was actually working at a hospital in the basement of a hospital. And one of the things that my family is a family of entrepreneurs. So I had started a healthcare consulting business. And that really kind of got me into it more. I learned a lot, learned about business, learned about healthcare, built a lot of relationships in that environment. So I was fortunate enough to sell that business off in about 2010. And then after selling that off, we started another healthcare company. It was a healthcare software company doing a lot of revenue cycle software. Was able to sell that off in 2021. And now it's basically, I was originally just an investor in the school because it was a passion project. It's something I was really excited about to be a part of. But then after selling my previous business, I was like, okay, now I've got to take my sales, my marketing, technology skills, and then let's see if we can apply it to the medical school and make things better and more efficient for the new generation of students going kind of forward. So that's kind of how I've got involved. Is like I've just been in healthcare my entire life and just wanted to continue that.
Yeah, so I I've also been through your LinkedIn profile, and I see that you've been part. you were founder and senior partner from 2000 to 2010, and
Mhm.
then you were also VP client management from 2010 to 2012. And these are the two companies that you said that did very well, and you decided to move here, like on this path. Am I right?
Correct, correct.
So
Mhm.
you've been an entrepreneur for a long time, and why? I understand you said that you come from a family of entrepreneurs, but why did you also feel that this is something you also want to do in healthcare?
Yeah. So two reasons. I've actually seen healthcare inside and out, and I have my immediate family is entrepreneurs. My wider family is a mix of physicians and entrepreneurs. But I've also gone through a personal journey of seeing how healthcare works in the United States, both as obviously as an administrator and as running the business side of it, but also as a patient. So I did have cancer in 2014. Thankfully, I'm in remission, all relieved, and kind of doing well. So seeing that holistic view of the impact that being a doctor has and being able to make that difference is huge, right? It's basically we all feel it, and we all have family members have either had cancer or someone who's been sick. So seeing from all sides of it, I was like, okay, this is something I want to be involved in. This is something I want to kind of do. I've done it from an operational standpoint. Now I want to do it for something that's closer to the patients and kind of making that impact. And I was fortunate enough to be involved in helping doctors make a difference.
I'm glad to hear that you're better now. It's obviously a very, very difficult disease, and it affects everything, every part of your
Mhm.
body, and also mentally. It's good to see that you're doing well, and
Yeah,
also you're giving back to the community. Thank you so much.
appreciate that. No,
Yeah, thank you
appreciate
so
that.
much for doing that. So my next question was going to be, what was the most significant challenge that you faced? But I think you already answered that. Is there anything else that you would like to add to the challenges you faced in healthcare and uh, revolutionizing healthcare um,
Yeah.
in your entrepreneurial life? Yeah.
So on the entrepreneur side, and this is kind of funny how I think the business cycle mirrors itself. It's getting easier, but it's still not easy. So I did well in my first business. We did fortunately really well in the second business as well. But there's a points and times where you basically kind of hit that brick wall, and it's basically make it or break it time period. And then just kind of breaking through is all tied to kind of perseverance and kind of believing in yourself. As long as you got a good business model and you know what you're kind of doing, you're close. To me, it's kind of sticking to it. And there was a moment like that in my previous business where we were basically like, hey, are we going to make it next month or not? Right, dealing with payroll, dealing with kind of the day-to-day things, and we went through a very similar process last year with the medical school. One of the most hardest or difficult things for me, especially in business and being used to in control of everything, was the hardest part about dealing with regulatory bodies, dealing with accreditation, dealing with kind of external factors that you don't have control over. But one thing I would basically say is like if you have the means, if you've got the grit, I mentioned this before. Is like, hey, sometimes you just have to use brute force and push your way through it and make it happen. And fortunately, we went through that. We got all of our accreditation site visits to happen. We've got everything else, and we're kind of in a we're now looking at the positive side on the other side. So stick with it, I guess, is the easy answer.
Right. And do you feel that, so besides stick with it, what are the other values do you feel that you want your company or your organization to represent?
Yeah. Um, I would number one, I would say is really especially on the um, healthcare side or the business side, it's just like and a lot of people say this all the time, right? Look at it from your customer's perspective, right? I like to say it's like, hey, what does the customer's journey look like? What does the patient's experience look like? And in my case now, what does that student journey look like? To me, the success of our students is going to be the success of our school. So everything that we do starts with what does that student look like, starting from even like marketing and awareness to make sure they're aware of us, and then just how they come on board as a student, maybe even immigration and transitioning to Aruba back to the United States, and really keeping the end in mind to say, hey, this is a student journey, and where I'm going is I want to pass my board exams, I want to get placed into clinical rotations or residency, and then I want to become a practicing physician. As long as that roadmap is there, and you're focused on that, and you're from a student's perspective, that is what you got to focus on. I've learned that in all the business that I've involved in, is as long as you're keeping the end in mind for your customer, in our case, our students, then you'll do well.
Yeah, so basically, and I think that advice should be applied everywhere. We should always focus on the end goal, and then everything falls through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I remember my career counselor when I was a kid also said something like this to me. Uh, put your end goal, what you want to be in 10 years, and
Mhm.
then walk backwards, and like it'll just fall in place, right?
Exactly, exactly. And the only thing I would add to that is because you want to keep the end in goal in mind, but enjoy the journey at the same time,
Yeah.
right? So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's don't sacrifice the now for the end goal, but that's why if you know what the end goal is, you can enjoy the journey and do well.
Yeah. In fact, somebody else once told me, if you want to know if you're enjoying the present or the journey, you just immediately need to look back the
Yeah,
last few moments or the last few
right,
hours or like something like that. And then you know that you're enjoying it because if you can reflect back and enjoy that part, then you know you're here to enjoy as well.
right, right, exactly.
Okay. Nice. So, can you, so what has, in your entrepreneurial journey, what has been the most satisfying moment so far?
It's to me in some of those cases is seeing it come to fruition, right? And in a couple of different areas. I'll talk about my previous business. Is really the day we sold the business, right? And then the team members, and they were kind of part of it, and what they got rewarded for their part is it was kind of huge, right? It's basically you work hard, you kind of reach that destination. It's kind of like you're playing a game and you win the game, and it's sort of sharing that with your teammates, right? That helped you get there and do all of that. For the medical school, it's been the exact same thing, but it's kind of an ongoing process. One of the most exciting times for me was we have something that's called a white coat ceremony, when students start medical school, and basically seeing their faces as they start the journey of becoming a medical student is very, very rewarding. And then lastly, when we had our very first graduating class, because we're a young school in 2024, and seeing our first graduates go through that process, and basically, hey, they're going to go and actually now be practicing physicians and helping people. So that's kind of, to me, has been kind of the most satisfying, is to be able to see our success. Obviously, getting accreditation is great, getting, doing financial is great, but it's just really seeing our students succeed, and then our faculty be happy, and see that as well to succeed as part of that.
Right. And do you feel that like this definition of success, I mean, I believe it has changed over the years, right? Because with
Hmm.
different businesses,
Hmm.
with you had different goals, and then the definition of success also became like something else over the years. So, is there something that you feel that that was a failure before and has that later became a success and that has helped you grow?
Yeah, I almost there's been many of those. I almost kind of feel like if you're not failing a little bit, then you're not learning. We've learned so much more from our failures than we do our successes. So, for example, going when we started this school, we had started our accreditation process, and then kind of COVID hit, right? And then we had so many challenge because of COVID. Our accreditation delays got happened, so that led to so many quote unquote failures, or challenges that we have to do. It's like, to me, if you've got accreditation, you've got money, those all those things can cover a lot of your mistakes. But if you don't have that, then you make those mistakes and you learn those mistakes and you do much, much better. So we kind of went through that process with our school, because of COVID, or just being a new school, is going through those growing pains, making those mistakes, having those failures, and then just improving upon those. And we're much, much better today because of those failures, than we would have been otherwise.
That's an interesting way to look at COVID,
Yeah,
because a lot of us suffered a lot of setbacks,
yeah, yeah.
career setbacks, health setbacks, issues with family, and financial setbacks.
Mhm.
But very few people have come out of it thinking, actually, I mean, those hurdles helped us. So yeah, that's a very good way to look at that. Um, so, since you've been part of this entrepreneurial journey for so long, and now it's more, I would say it's a little bit more organized in the sense that it's a university, and
Mhm.
it affects way more people than, I mean, I'm not so sure what you did previously, but it just affects way more students, and you will be affecting like a large generation of people. um, what how do you foster innovation and creativity within your team and your organization?
Sure. So healthcare in general, and then this applies to education and higher education as well, is really, and especially, and for good reason, is really, I don't want to say old fashioned, but it's been hard for change, right? It's hard to kind of modernize. And so a lot of what I did previously was related to, electronic medical records, making things more up to speed and be able to share information and basically doing things kind of more effectively kind of going forward, trying to apply that same methodology to higher education. Is like, hey, how do we use things like AI? Like we have a new system in place that's using artificial intelligence to automate a lot of our processes or make them more efficient on the back end. So the student satisfaction is higher. So they're able to, process requests faster. They're able to um, get their transcripts and all these things. So using technology to be able to do that, but that's kind of a challenge. It's basically getting everybody on board, especially if you're used to doing things, especially in a university setting, in a different way. But one of our goals or mission is, I come from a technology background myself, so I kind of spearhead that. It's like, hey, we've got to do this more efficiently and better, to not just save costs, but to have a better experience for the students. And then especially in today's world, in the TikTok or the Instagram world, everybody's used to kind of instant access or kind of quick response, and to be able to do everything on your mobile phone. And those are the students that we're going after. And then those are the students that are interacting with us. So if you kind of think back to, hey, the student journey, what that student journey experience looks like, we have to tailor our to those students or those type of students. So that's how we kind of push innovation and push like how we things doing better and more efficiently going forward.
Yeah, and I was just thinking that I know it's a stereotype that a lot of brown people are doctors in the US, and now there's a brown person revolutionizing the healthcare system in the US. So I think it's kind of cool. I don't know if I'm allowed to say these things. I don't know if it's politically correct as well, but it's really cool.
No, no, it's all good.
Great. So, what is the long-term vision for the for your organization, like for the university?
Sure. So, being a new institution, one of the things being in technology, 4 or 5 years is a long time, right? So you can do a lot, and a lot of companies are made, built, sold off, or kind of exit or finish within 3 or 4 years. We're now about 6 years into this medical school project, and we are, for higher education, we're still an infant, right? It's a long-term vision, it's a long-term project. Getting our first cycle through of students and first graduating class itself takes 4 years alone, and then we were successfully kind of accomplished that. But our kind of vision or our growth strategy is really to kind of expand it into a fuller university. Our first school is a school of medicine, but we are also planning on, school of nursing, school of dentistry. There's actually an undergraduate program that we're starting for Aruban students at the end of this year as well too. So the plan is to kind of take this really kind of student housing as well, is to really kind of take it to the next level of having, obviously in Aruba itself, but also kind of internationally, of having campuses kind of throughout the United States and possibly even throughout the world.
Right, and I think American University is actually across the world. It has different campuses across the
Yeah,
world,
and
right?
and they're not all associated. They're not the same. I know there's an American University in Washington D.C. and there's others, but the name American University is tied to Aruba right now. But it's not a just to be clear, there's not affiliation with all the other American universities
Okay, all right.
that
Okay,
I guess.
all right. Okay. Um, okay, great. So are you also looking at maybe some just like it's just I was just thinking about it. Are you also looking at doing some kind of a program for maybe Aruban high school kids that like to encourage them to join the medical
Yeah.
university in Aruba?
Yeah, so that's part of the undergraduate program. Is basically we're looking at starting an associates program that's partnered with U.S. Schools that allow us to have students that kind of come to the associate program, and if they're interested in medicine, they can kind of have a direct path to our medical school. And if they're not, or if they want to do other things, they can either, like, I know there's hospitality is big in Aruba or others, but it basically becomes like a gateway path to go to a 4-year educational institution in the United States as well too. So it basically gives them the option to try a school. One of the challenges with a lot of international countries, they're looking for American or English-based curriculum, right? And everything today, it's like, well, if they're on YouTube or whatnot, everything is in English. So most students and everything that they see is in English. So people are looking for American and English type of curriculum, and instead of sending their kids off somewhere else and learning a new world, they basically let them stay there, try it for a couple of years, and if that's something that they're interested in, then it kind of gives them a gateway to go to other places.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. So, okay. So this associate program with kids, like with undergrad children, would also young adults would also be like for a couple of years, or it will be like something like an internship or a summer course
No,
or something.
no, it would be a couple of years. It's like a full associate's degree, like a
Okay,
2-year
okay.
college degree. Mhm.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, so considering that this is a big project, and of course you've been part of it for 6 years, and you've previously been part of big projects for like 10 years and all that,
Mhm.
how do you deal with risk and adversity and doubt in such situations, especially with healthcare and technology? Everything needs to be cutting edge and to the point, and you absolutely cannot. The stakes are so high that may feel like, I don't know if I'm putting pressure on you by saying all this,
Yeah.
but the stakes are so high that you may feel like I cannot make a mistake. So how do you deal with a situation like that?
Yeah, no, no, that's a big challenge, right? That's something to kind of deal with, and especially from a personal perspective, it's like, hey, how do we th- doing this entire project or kind of doing any business has a lot of risk to it, right? And it's not for the kind of faint of heart. So you have to be very risk averse or have the ability to kind of take on risk and be able to kind of do it. It's not easy. I'll just say it's not very it's bit of a very bit of a challenge. But at the end of the day, it kind of goes back to when I think about what's the end goal of what we're trying to do and kind of making that difference. It's, to me, that's where I'm at kind of in my career, in my life, is like, all right, I'm going to push through because I'm an example either for my children or for the community of is, hey, this is a difference that it's going to make, right? So if you kind of have that motivates you and pushes you through, and kind of take risks where it needed. You don't want to take wild, crazy risks, right? But basically, it's all about pushing yourself through, and then making those risks as calculated as possible, right? It's basically it's not a wild, wild west. It's basically, okay, this is what makes sense, and then calculated risks.
Right. And I believe calculated risk should also make like it should make sense, right? Only
Mhm.
then it it will fall through. Otherwise, it will like not.
Exactly. And to me, one thing it's part of that is when you say calculated risk or kind of, even a calculated business model is, I consider myself a optimistic and I'm hopeful and I am a dreamer, but your dream has to be um, has to have a model to it that, hey, this is going to work, right? I'm not dreaming just to dream, right? It's not like clouds and pies and cotton candy everywhere.
Yeah.
It has to be, okay, it's doable.
Yeah, it's the same thing that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
You dream, you have a purpose, and then you walk backwards
Right.
and
Exactly.
walk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Nice. So how would you describe your leadership style, and how do you feel it has changed over the years?
Um, one of the I consider myself a servant leader, right? I almost kind of think is like, what can I do to help and support the team, right? What am I doing to basically make them successful? And that's kind of where when I talked about earlier, hey, it's all about the student and the student journey, and we're focusing on the student. To be able to get that focus on the student, I think my role is to focus on our team, whether that's our faculty, our staff, to basically give them the support and resources and vision and guidance, is that, hey, you are the ones that have to take care of these students, right? You have to be able to do that. So that's kind of my approach to basically provide them guidance and provide them with my vision of this is where we want to go. Um, and this is how we want to do things in regards to how we're going to treat people, how we're going to treat our students, how we're going to work together. But then it's really kind of up to them to basically kind of execute and make and hold them accountable at the same time, right? Sometimes you need that as well too. Hey, this is your responsibility. This is what you're accountable for, and then let me give you all the support, guidance, and resources you need that to take care of our students.
Right. So how do you feel this has changed over the years? I mean, I believe this is your style now. So
Yeah,
what
yeah.
has changed? Yeah.
No, I think my biggest challenge historically has really been delegation, and I'm a control freak. Sometimes I feel like I have some OCD tendencies, where I like things have to be exactly the way they are. One of the things I've kind of learned and just kind of is basically, something 80% complete is better than 100% perfect, right? It's basically sometimes I become a bottleneck when that happens, and then the scalability is not there. So it's almost like one, you empower your team, you're able to kind of have them. I don't like to kind of micromanage, just kind of give them the guidance, but it doesn't have to be 100% the way I would want to do it. As long as, I say it's like 80% there. We don't want it to be a bad job, right? We don't want it to be 20%, but it's like the 80-20 rule, right? It's like, hey, just as long as you're able to get 80% there without me being involved, is much, much better. And that's probably been the biggest challenge for me over time is delegation and letting things go.
The I think both of these things are something that I struggle with as well.
Mhm.
Like the main thing that I am like deeply struggling with is if I don't end up giving my best,
Mhm.
and I feel that I've not done enough, and I'm sending my work ahead, even though it's I know it's like everybody appreciates it and it's good work or whatever, but just that I feel it's not good enough because I am such a difficult person to please.
Yeah,
It just that doesn't help me and it doesn't help anybody, because if I keep working on one thing for 100 hours and I can do the same thing in 40 hours with less effort, but just that 80 to if I keep that 80-20 rule in mind, it's
right,
just
right.
yeah, it works better for everybody else, but just doesn't work better for me.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes they say perfection could be your enemy, right? It's basically is like, all right, then you never kind of get anything done. So that's exact same way. I have the exact same issues. Like I'm trying to over revise and make it to be 100% perfect. So, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, nobody will be happy, not even yourself. So, like, what's
exactly,
the
exactly.
point? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, I mean, you've been working in healthcare and technology for like a long time now. So, how has people's approach to technology and healthcare changed over the years?
I think a lot of it is acceptance, right? One of the things that I my in the early days, and going back to the hospitals, right? People are used to doing things even like on paper and pencil or on paper, right? And as society evolves and things kind of get more acceptable, and even today, like security, right? People are worried. Wait a minute, my medical records are in the network or on the cloud somewhere, right? It's basically that mindset has changed significantly, and that's even more secure sometimes than leaving a piece of paper with your medical information laying around somewhere. So I think as society has progressed and as technology and people are getting used to more things, and these our phones and everything, it's now become expected. Before it was a fear. Now people are wait a minute. Why do I have to do this on paper? Why isn't this? Why can't I just do it from my phone? So that shift has very helped kind of going forward as well too. So acceptance of technology.
Yeah. In fact, I don't know if you watch Modern Family, another American sitcom, where
Yeah.
Luke, in one of the in the last season, I think Luke
Mhm.
proposed a medical startup idea, like a sort
Mhm.
of medical startup idea, which is basically putting in all your details in on one website, and every time you go to a different hospital,
Mhm.
you put in the same details, you put in one ID or something, and then all your medical records show up.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, and his father was so jealous that he came up with this idea with somebody else and not him. But it was a great idea. I
Yeah.
mean, and I think it's followed. It's already being followed in a lot of
Yeah. Yeah.
places. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of getting to a point is if you go to different doctors or different hospitals, if you don't have electronically available, it's like, wait a minute, why is this that way? So it's
Yeah.
what we were fighting for became the norm, is becoming the norm, and now it's basically the standard, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, people are more comfortable signing digitally than
yeah,
signing on pen right now, because sometimes
right,
it just doesn't match. But signing digitally, you're like, yeah, this is like easier. So
exactly, exactly.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So what are the most critical skills that you feel that you have learned um, over the years, besides learning how to delegate
Yeah.
and the 80/20 rule? Yeah.
No, delegation is definitely kind of number one, and that kind of goes along with kind of trusting your team. But kind of from a skills perspective, I would basically is not taking things for granted. One of the things where I used to always like, wait a minute, I just assume that everybody knows this. So communication and clarity and being the ability to do that and share information to the rest of your organization and your customers and your students is kind of key, right? It's basically communication skills, kind of going forward and making sure you're good there from that aspect. The other I would basically say is kind of some core skills, right? Know your numbers, right? If you're an entrepreneur or your business, one of the things that you can take credit for that can really kill you is just your finance and your books, right? So you think that's easy, somebody's going to take care of it, but I was going to say communicate and know your numbers from an entrepreneur perspective.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be like not just jack of all trades, but also I think master of all trades. I mean, can you tell me what are the more like what is there a book or a mentor or maybe a podcast that inspired you um, to be on this journey?
So, not really like a podcast to get on the journey, but one thing that basically I think gave me structure to organize how we're doing things, right? It's basically, hey, there's being an entrepreneur, a new business person, there's a lot of stuff going on and you're learning and the things are coming from. But Dan Martell is someone that basically I started with and teamed with many, many years ago. He's a SaaS coach, software as a service coach. That's because of my business was. But a lot of those concepts apply even in our medical school and kind of all businesses as well too. So his book, and he has a book called Buying Back Your Time. So I'll kind of give him a plug. That has been kind of really good to basically practical advice that you can use almost kind of a day-to-day perspective, right? So that's a really good one. Then obviously I'm a big biography reader, right? So I've read Steve Jobs biography, I've read Richard Branson, I've read um, all kind of Jeff Bezos and everything else. And Benjamin Franklin, right? So I read and listen to a lot of audiobooks about people's lives that have kind of gone through this journey in that process. So just biographies of entrepreneurs or of historical figures and their leadership styles is what I lean towards.
Yeah, that would make sense actually because you're working on something really big. So it would make sense to, learn from the greats
Right.
themselves.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Nice. So now my last question to you is firstly, thank you so much for this conversation. I have enjoyed a lot and I don't know much about the medical field and nothing about the US medical field. But thank you so much for this. Um, I wanted to know what advice would you give somebody starting their entrepreneurial journey now in like the US and abroad?
Yeah. So if you're starting a new business, right, or any entrepreneurial idea, one thing I would basically look at is what people are looking for help with is if they have a problem and they're looking for someone to help them solve that problem, right? And then what is the value of that? So it partially you can say it goes back to what we're talking about from a student journey or customer journey, but know what business problems exist out there and then what your expertise is and then how you can add value to that. And in some cases that could be entertainment, you're creating content and you're posting stuff on like TikTok or Instagram and others, or it could be like, hey, here's a better way to do things, and so let me write some software that can make things more efficient for you. That could be even a niche or something like that. So what I would say is focus on your customer's problem, and how you can provide value by solving their problems, right? Don't push your product, say, hey, I got this great solution, you should do it. It should start with, hey, what problems people are facing and how you can help them, right? If you tailor your business and your journey kind of around that, you'll do very well.
Yeah, I mean, it's so this this is so difficult from what usually people say, right? We say
Yeah.
don't focus on the problem, for focus on the solution. And now it's like,
Y-
yeah, for a lot of entrepreneurs say focus on the problem, be committed to the problem, and then you will find a solution. That's a new way to
Exactly,
look at
exactly.
it.
Because that's what your customers, that's what people kind of care about is like, there's a lot of great ideas and solutions out there, but if they can't relate to what you're solving, it's hard to succeed, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Nice. Okay, this has been great. Thank you so much for talking. And yeah, I hope we can talk more again in the future and like maybe have like a deeper conversation about what you're doing, especially when I know more about it. So thank you so much, and thank you everybody who's been listening until now.
All right. No, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.